The gas station sat alone on the edge of a dark highway, its flickering neon sign barely piercing the night. I pulled in for fuel, the low rumble of my engine the only sound against the dead silence. The air felt heavy, unnatural, even for a lonely stretch of road like this. As I stepped out, I noticed the man immediately. He was hunched by the convenience store entrance, clutching his backpack like a lifeline. His clothes were worn, his face gaunt, a hitchhiker. He looked relieved when our eyes met, as if he had been waiting for someone, anyone, to show up. "Hey," he called out, his voice unsteady. "You headed north." I hesitated. There was something about him that unsettled me, but I couldn't place what. Maybe it was his eyes, wide, darting to the dark tree line behind the station, as if expecting something to emerge. "Yeah," I finally said. "Need a lift?" His relief was almost overwhelming. "God, yes, just past the next town. That's all I need." We drove in silence at first. The night pressed against the truck windows, the radio playing a faint static. He kept shifting in his seat, rubbing his arms as if trying to warm himself. "You all right?" I asked. He swallowed hard. Do you believe in ghosts?" I almost laughed, but something in his voice made my skin crawl. "I don't know," I admitted. He exhaled, looking out into the dark. "Something's been following me. I think it's not human." I tightened my grip on the wheel. "What do you mean?" His fingers dug into his knees. "I got picked up by another driver before you, long-haul trucker, dropped me off at that gas station, but I think something got into the cab with me. I didn't see it, but I felt it, like breath on my neck, like it whispered my name." A chill settled over me. "I went inside the store," he continued, voice barely above a whisper, "and I swear to God, I saw myself, my reflection, but it wasn't copying me. It was smiling at me." A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I tried to tell the clerk, but he didn't see anything. Then I heard it again, whispering, right in my ear. He turned his head toward me, his face pale and damp with sweat. So I walked into the forest, even though I knew I shouldn't. I didn't want to, but my feet just moved. My heart pounded. "How did you get out?" He shuddered. "I don't remember." A silence stretched between us. The hum of the tires against the road was the only sound. Then, from the back seat, something breathed. Not a sigh, not a creak of the truck. A slow, deliberate inhale. Right behind us, the sound froze me. A slow, deliberate inhale, like someone savoring the scent of something. Or someone. I snapped my eyes to the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the empty back seat, the duffel bag I always kept there, the darkness pressing in through the rear windshield. The hitchhiker stiffened beside me, his breath hitching in his throat. His hands clamped down on his knees so hard his knuckles turned white. "You heard it too," he whispered. It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to focus on the road. "Yeah." I reached for the mirror again, adjusting the angle. Just as I moved it, a flicker, a shadow, something shifting just out of view. The truck swerved slightly as my stomach lurched. I yanked the wheel back into place, my pulse hammering in my throat. The hitchhiker sat rigid, staring straight ahead now. "Don't stop," he murmured. "No matter what happens, don't stop." I wasn't planning on it. The highway stretched ahead, empty and endless, the road swallowed in darkness beyond my headlights. The forest on either side loomed taller now, thicker like it was closing in. Another breath, this time closer, right behind my seat. I couldn't look. I wouldn't. The hitchhiker's fingers twitched, his entire body vibrating like a live wire. "It followed me," he said. "It got in." The words sent an icy spike down my spine. Then, knuckles dragged across the fabric of the back seat. Slow, deliberate, like someone shifting their weight, getting comfortable. I nearly slammed the brakes, but caught myself at the last second. My hands were ice on the wheel, my breath coming in shallow bursts. The hitchhiker's voice dropped lower, almost inaudible. It's still watching us, waiting. I risked a glance at the mirror, and this time I saw it. A reflection that wasn't mine. A face, grinning too wide, too sharp, staring back at me from the back seat. Then, the lights cut out. The truck plunged into complete suffocating darkness. Everything went black. The truck's headlights, the dashboard, even the dim glow from my phone on the center console. It was like the entire world had been swallowed whole. And in that darkness, something moved. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. The weight shifting behind us. The air growing thick, like it was pressing in from all sides. My breath caught in my throat. The hitchhiker beside me went completely still. Then a sound. A low, wet chuckle. Not from me, not from him. From the back seat, my stomach twisted into a knot so tight it felt like it might snap. My fingers fumbled against the dashboard, searching blindly for the headlights, for anything to break the pitch-black grip of the night. But before I could find the switch, something yanked my hair. Hard. I let out a choked gasp, nearly losing control of the wheel as my head snapped backward. "Drive!" the hitchhiker screamed, his voice raw with terror. My foot slammed the gas pedal, the engine roaring, tires screeching against the asphalt. And just like that, the lights flickered back on. The truck was swerving wildly, nearly veering off the road. I wrestled with the wheel, dragging us back onto the highway, my pulse a jackhammer in my ears. The back seat was empty, but the hitchhiker wasn't looking back. He was staring at me. His face was pale as death, his pupils blown wide with horror. "It's not gone," he whispered. His words died in his throat. I felt it before I saw it. Cold breath against my neck, a sensation like fingers impossibly long and too many of them brushing lightly over my shoulder. I turned my head, and I wasn't alone in my seat anymore. A grinning face loomed inches from mine, eyes black as tar, a mouth stretching too far, curling with something wrong. My scream never made it past my throat, because as soon as I saw it, the truck slammed to a stop. Not because I hit the brakes, because something else did. The truck screeched to a stop as if it had slammed into an invisible wall. My body lurched forward, the seatbelt biting into my chest. The hitchhiker smacked against the dashboard with a grunt, but I barely noticed, because I could still feel it. That thing, its breath on my skin, its presence everywhere. I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. The air had thickened, turning suffocating, rotten, like damp earth and something long decayed. And then the whisper came. Not in my ear, not from the back seat. Inside my head. "Run!" A slow, slithering word, sliding through my skull like oil. My stomach twisted violently, bile rising in my throat. The hitchhiker let out a strangled gasp beside me. He was clutching his head, eyes wild with terror. His voice was barely a breath. "It's inside." I turned to him, my skin crawling. "What?" His whole body was shaking, his pupils nearly swallowing the color of his eyes. "It's inside us now." The meaning of his words settled into my gut like a lead weight. This thing, wasn't just in the truck anymore. It had slithered deeper, somewhere we couldn't escape. The whisper came again. "Run!" My fingers curled around the door handle, my instincts screaming to get out, to run into the night, into the forest, anywhere but here. Then, the truck locks clicked shut. A sound so small, so quiet, yet it sent ice through my veins. The hitchhiker's breathing turned ragged. No! No! His hands scrambled for his door handle, yanking, pulling. Nothing! The locks wouldn't budge. Neither would mine. I hit the button. Nothing. The engine was still running. The dashboard still glowing. The road ahead stretching into nothingness. And then, the rearview mirror shifted. I didn't touch it. It just moved, tilting upward, angling until I could see a pair of black eyes staring back at me. Too big, too hollow, too close. A hand, thin, jagged, wrong, rose from the back seat and pressed one long, needle-like finger to its lips. The whisper came one last time. You shouldn't have stopped. And then, the truck's interior lights went out. Darkness, complete, suffocating, unnatural. The moment the lights went out, something shifted inside the truck. The air crackled, like static, like pressure building before a storm. My skin prickled, my breath shallow and fast. Then a sound. Not a whisper this time. A giggle, low, wet, slithering through the dark like fingers against damp skin. The hitchhiker whimpered beside me. "Please," he whispered, voice breaking. "Please, I don't—" Thump! Something slammed into the roof. Hard. The whole truck shuddered under the impact. I grabbed the wheel instinctively, as if that could somehow keep us safe. My pulse was hammering, sweat slick on my palms. Another thump. Louder, heavier. Whatever was out there wasn't staying outside anymore. The hitchhiker reached for me, his fingers digging into my arm. "We have to get out! We have to get out now!" "We can't," I said, voice shaking. The doors. Then, a new sound. Click. The doors unlocked. On their own. I didn't touch the button. Neither did the hitchhiker. The moment stretched, cold and silent, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. The truck groaned as something dragged across the roof. Slow, deliberate. Metal screeched, peeling under the weight of something massive. And then, the passenger door swung open. I barely had time to see it. A flash of rotted skin, teeth that weren't quite teeth. A mouth that curled into a grin, too wide, too deep, too knowing. The hitchhiker let out a scream, and then he was gone, ripped out of the truck so fast it was like he had never been there at all. The door slammed shut. Silence. I sat there, my breath coming in shallow, ragged bursts. My hands were shaking. My entire body was trembling so hard I thought my bones might snap. I turned, slowly, heart pounding. I looked at the back seat. It was empty, but the air was still wrong, thick, suffocating, like something was still here. I swallowed hard. My trembling fingers reached for the ignition. I needed to drive, to get away from this place, from the thing that had taken him. But then, I caught movement in the rearview mirror. The back seat, empty but not. The air rippled, and then a shape began to crawl forward, slow, jerky, wrong, like a puppet learning to move. I couldn't breathe. It lifted its head, and I saw its face. My own, but it was smiling. A wide, knowing grin. And then, in my voice, "Your turn." The truck lights exploded in a flash of blinding white, and everything went black. Light, blinding, searing light flooded my vision, burning away the suffocating blackness in an instant. I gasped, sucking in deep, clean air, as if I had been drowning and had finally surfaced. The truck was gone. The road, the forest, the highway, all gone. I was standing in an open field, bathed in warm, golden sunlight. Birds chirped overhead, the sky stretched wide and blue. The air smelled of earth, of grass after rain. I was alive. But I wasn't alone. A figure stood a few feet ahead of me. I recognized the slouched shoulders, the tattered backpack. The hitchhiker. He turned slowly, eyes wide with shock, but not fear. Relief. "You made it too," he breathed. I stared at him. What happened? Where are we?" I don't know," he admitted, looking around. "But I think," he swallowed, "I think we got away." A breeze swept over the field, carrying with it a strange, distant sound. Laughter, not the sick, wet giggle from the truck. Children. I turned. Beyond the hill, a small town nestled in a valley. White houses with porches. A church steeple, a diner with a neon open sign flickering in the window. It was peaceful, safe, more real than anything I had felt in that truck. I turned back to the hitchhiker. "Do you remember how we got here?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Oh, no, but I think—" He took a deep breath. "I think it let us go." The word sent a shiver down my spine. That thing, whatever had whispered to us, stalked us, pulled him into the dark, it had let us go. Or maybe we had escaped. I didn't want to question it. Not now. Not when the sunlight was warm, when my hands weren't shaking anymore, when the weight in my chest had lifted. The hitchhiker exhaled, glancing toward the town. "Come on," he said. "Let's find out where we are." I nodded, falling into step beside him. And for the first time since that gas station, I felt safe. Behind us, the field stretched on, golden and endless. The highway, that cursed endless stretch of road, was nowhere to be seen. And somewhere, far, far away, something still waited in the dark, but it no longer had us.